Hi, so my name's Esmeray. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself today. My start in life was not easy. Um, I was born to two parents who were neglectful and they were addicted to cocaine and meth. So my early years, I actually don't remember that much because I it's just a blur. But I do remember health and welfare a lot coming in and out. I remember seeing different faces, not knowing where I was going to end up, kind of that uh, situation. But I do remember my biological father specifically. He's been addicted to meth since he was 17. So he had kids pretty young. But I do remember just being locked in a closet. He would not let me out. He always told me he didn't want anything to do with me. I was abused quite frequently by him, and he actually had other kids as well. And he liked to make child porn with us when we were younger. He lost custody after I ended up with a head injury where there was blood pouring down half my face. To be honest, I don't remember that day. I just remember the blood coming down my face. And after that, never saw him again. And then my biological mother was just as abusive. Luckily, I was back and forth from CPS custody. I did have three siblings that stayed with her full time. I was the only one that was ever pulled out of the house back and forth. So growing up, I do not have any good memories. I just remember being beaten. I'm covered in scars all over my body from that. I have marks all over my back from one time when I was actually being whipped as a punishment. So I get into 8 years old is the next big step in my life, and I'm in school. I'm trying to do better, trying to behave. And I went to a school with older kids. I'm pretty sure it was a K-8 school, but some of the older kids, I got jumped one day by two older boys, and I ended up getting raped at that age. And when I reported it to the principal, it was disregarded. So I went through the entire day at school, just bleeding and in pain. And I went home and I actually got beat for getting blood on my clothes because blood's really hard to get out of clothes. So I got removed from that home again, put into a different one. And I just became really not okay. I started to set fires and I started breaking into places. That's kind of how I grew up. At the age of 13, I had a guardian that decided I was too hard to deal with. So they decided to start giving me alcohol as a way to kind of tone me down. So I was easier to deal with. So I started drinking at the age of 13, and it continued all throughout high school. Um, in high school, I got into so much trouble. I would get into fights constantly. I would hurt people. I was just very malicious about it. But I actually started studying psychology, and that was something that really interested me. And I decided to take some college courses because I just realized I wanted to be a trauma therapist. I wanted to go into the mental health field. It didn't work out for me. I got into some legal trouble, and I ended up having to do a court-ordered psych eval. And I learned so much about myself, and I decided that I wouldn't be the type of person that I could be in that field. I was too much of a risk myself. I also tried to hang myself that year, and luckily my best friend is the one that found me. Unfortunately, I still was drinking, and I went and did some risky behaviors. I ended up getting sex trafficked. And I think the worst part about that wasn't even actually the trafficking itself. It was the fact that I disappeared for almost a year and nobody cared. Nobody looked for me. Like I just vanished and the world went on. And not one person that I was talking to at the time cared enough to figure out where I went. Like I just disappeared. So when I came back and got my life back together, I had so many people telling me how they had missed me and how they wanted to catch up and how like they did that, this, the other. And I just immediately threw them all out of my life because there's no way you, I was gone for so long. And you obviously didn't care that much if you didn't come looking for me. So I moved on completely, left everything behind. And so at the age of 18, unfortunately, I was still doing a lot of risky behaviors. And I went to a party and I thought I had a friend, and they ended up drugging me. And I ended up pregnant after that. And I raised a beautiful, a beautiful child from that horrible instance. But he's doing good now. I'm happy for him. But yeah, it's been a long road. After that, I ended up in a really abusive relationship where I had to flee for my life. And at this point, I had a second child from rape. And so me and my kids, we packed up and left in the middle of the night. And it was an adventure, but we ended up moving, bought a house together, and we've been free from both of them since. And I became a peer support so that I could help other people like me and try and do some good in the world after all the terrible things I've done in my life, and try to recover the best I can from other people's mistakes. But we're doing pretty good now.
That's absolutely amazing. And I want to thank you for your vulnerability. I know sometimes when we live our own story, it just kind of it rolls like that. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, it was this, oh, it was that, because we
Yeah.
live. But, I can deeply feel how that impacted you. And I'm so sorry you went through that. I can relate to some of your story, but I just want to thank you for your bravery and your vulnerability.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate you for still being here because I know that that can be a real challenge day after day. And I'm hearing horror stories all over the place about one of our new best friends was treated somewhat similarly, left out in the cold with no food because her mother didn't approve of her. And she was one of triplets. She was the center one of triplets. It's like, how do you decide that the two are fine, but the one in the middle, she's no good?
Yeah.
And lots of abuse, and to the point of uh, the doctors breaking her back, and her mother saying there was nothing wrong with her. And recently went into the hospital and was told there was nothing wrong, sent home, and had a stroke the next day.
Mm.
So I very much feel I feel so fortunate at this point. I had good parents.
Yeah.
Esmeray, I really appreciate you sharing your story, and I'm nearly speechless by the kinds of things that occur in this world. And obviously, you don't deserve the treatment that you received from these circumstances in the past. And I don't know, they didn't break your ability to smile, which is a testament to your strength. So thank you for being here and speaking. It's very touches us inside, in some way that, oh, I don't know. Again, I'm almost speechless. Like, damn. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, if you don't mind. You were mentioning like wanting to go into the mental health field and studying psychology, and then coming to the conclusion that maybe that path wasn't right for you, and then now you're a peer support specialist, which is
Yep.
kind of, you know, I don't know, dancing in the same zone a little bit, but you know, can you talk a little bit about like what specifically with that initial educational path was like not right for you and like why peer support was a good fit for you?
So it was mainly the way I viewed myself. After I got my diagnosis, I thought that I was not helpful to anybody. I thought that I was just kind of destined to be this awful human being and that there was nothing I could do to change that. And so I figured that there was no way that I could ever be a proper therapist. And obviously I put myself in therapy afterwards, after I realized like there was something I could do to help myself. And she's actually the one that introduced me to peer support. And so I was pretty excited about that.
Okay. Yeah. How do you pronounce your name again?
Esmeray.
Okay, because I'm thinking Esmeralda. I said, no, that's not
Yes.
it.
That's okay.
Esmeray, that's pretty. That's really pretty.
Thank you.
I actually identify with a lot of stuff that you have said, you know, especially the part where it's like, you know, I begin to feel like that like it was more than an emptiness. It was like I wasn't even real. I wasn't here, almost invisible if I in the inside, deep down inside, didn't actually say, I know I'm real, I know I'm here, but it was the feeling alone. It was the feeling alone, and you know, people are so cruel. They're so cruel, and so a lot of stuff you said, I identified with it, you know, and I actually had to just walk off and leave everything and everyone behind and find myself and heal myself after everything I went through. And as many people that was around me, nobody helped. It was like, if you help her, we gonna scorn you too, you know? It was like, she doesn't deserve help and this and that. The only thing she deserves is to die. It was so horrible, and tears couldn't even, you know, at least I was believing that tears couldn't help and stuff like that. So it was a long time before I even cried. And I actually started making myself cry. And I went and got my degree in psychology because I needed to know what was wrong, what happened to me, what happened to my family, what was wrong with society that they can be so cruel and evil, I'm just going to say, you know, because when it came to me, you know, the things what happened to me, I could never do to anybody. I could never do that to anybody. And even though in all my hurt, pain, and shame and self-degrading, you know, degradation, not knowing I was doing that from the way I was thinking, my thought process, you know, blaming myself for things that were not my fault. You know, all the rapes, I don't even know how many times I stopped counting, you know, and being at my relative's house and being so drunk and whatnot that they let me go home anyway by myself. Whereas that if it was me, I would tell them go lay down somewhere, have something to eat, you know, and unsafe. But that never happened for me. Never happened for me. So when it came time for me to walk away, I want to go back, and I've been back several times, but it's still the same. So the last time I went, and the thing is that my granddaughter just had twins, and I went back, and nothing has changed with her mother. And then, you know, that's her mother, and you know, it's like that's you know, birds flock together, birds of the feather flock together. And it's not that I don't want to go back. I really want to go back, but I already know what it's going to be like, and I don't want to put myself at risk. You know, so it was so bad that I know when my granddaughter was a baby, you know, for similar reasons, I went shopping for her and I sent it in the mail. You know, she never went to the post office and picked it up. Yeah, they came back. So, you know, I said, okay. You know, these are lessons. You know, as I went along, and as bad as it hurted, I took them as lessons and I strengthened myself with it because there's nothing I can do about it. But it was really painful. It really was. I've been through it. So I really understand. I really understand, you know, and I identify with a lot that she says. And that's why I'm in the field as well, because it's like people need healing. Most people don't even think they need healing, but they do. So thank you, Esmeray.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story. Anybody in here gonna write a book?
Oh, man, I've been through a ton this past year. I have come up with another volume of Karen's encyclopedia.